Did you know that over 122,000 people in Australia are homeless right now? That's more than the entire population of cities like Ballarat or Launceston, living without stable shelter in one of the wealthiest nations on earth. From people sleeping in cars and tents to entire families stuck in temporary accommodations, homelessness in Australia has reached alarming levels, and the numbers are only climbing in 2025. But here's the twist. It's not just happening in the big cities like Sydney and Melbourne. Even places known for their beauty, prosperity, and peaceful suburbs are now struggling with growing homeless populations. You might think your city is safe from this crisis, but what if it's already on the list? What if the next statistic is someone you know, or worse, you? In this video, we're counting down the top 10 cities in Australia with the worst homelessness crisis in 2025. And some of these names will absolutely shock you. Stay with us, because the truth is deeper, darker, and more urgent than you might expect. Number 10. Hobart. At first glance, Hobart looks like a postcard-perfect city. Charming waterfronts, historic architecture, and a peaceful island atmosphere. But behind the scenic beauty, a deep and growing crisis is unfolding. Hobart now ranks among the top 10 Australian cities with the highest homelessness rates, and the situation in 2025 is more critical than ever. Over the past few years, Hobart has seen a massive surge in housing demand, driven by mainland migration, tourism, and limited property development. Unfortunately, the supply hasn't kept up. Rental prices have skyrocketed, making it nearly impossible for low-income earners to find stable accommodation. In fact, Hobart consistently ranks as one of the least affordable cities for renters in Australia. For many, even securing a room in a shared house is out of reach. What's especially alarming is the rise in invisible homelessness, people couch surfing, living in cars, or staying in overcrowded conditions just to survive. Local shelters are overwhelmed, and the waiting list for public housing continues to stretch into years. Even those with jobs are finding themselves priced out of the market, creating a new wave of working homeless. Community groups and local charities are doing their best, offering food, temporary beds, and counselling, but the demand far outweighs the resources available. While Hobart's image remains calm and picturesque, the reality for many of its residents is one of deep uncertainty, cold nights, and a constant struggle for shelter. If Hobart's crisis feels shocking, wait until you see what's happening in the next city on our list. Number 9. Darwin. Darwin, known for its tropical climate and laid-back lifestyle, might seem like an unlikely place for a homelessness crisis. But scratch beneath the surface, and you'll find a city grappling with some of the most complex and heartbreaking cases of homelessness in the country. In 2025, Darwin ranks 9th on our list, and not without reason. The city's remoteness amplifies every challenge. Limited housing availability, high living costs, and a lack of essential services create a dangerous mix, especially for the region's most vulnerable. A significant portion of Darwin's homeless population is Indigenous Australians, many of whom come from remote communities in search of better support. Instead, they often face cultural dislocation, discrimination, and inadequate access to healthcare and housing. Unlike major cities with broader safety nets, Darwin struggles with under-resourced shelters and support programs. Many homeless individuals end up living in overcrowded housing, makeshift camps, or exposed to the harsh outdoor elements. The tropical climate doesn't soften the experience. In fact, extreme heat and unpredictable storms can turn survival into a daily battle. Seasonal employment, especially in industries like agriculture and tourism, adds another layer of instability. When the work dries up, so does the income, leaving many without a fallback option. Despite efforts from NGOs and local communities, Darwin's geographic isolation continues to limit access to long-term solutions. Darwin's crisis is a reminder that homelessness isn't just about housing, it's about access, equity, and support. And as we move up this list, the situations only grow more urgent. Number 8. Wollongong. Wollongong, with its stunning beaches and lush escarpments, is often seen as a peaceful retreat just south of Sydney. But behind its postcard-perfect exterior lies a quiet but growing homelessness crisis that has pushed this coastal city into the number 8 spot on our list for 2025. Over the past decade, Wollongong has undergone significant transformation. Once a traditional working-class town built around steel and mining, it has evolved into a vibrant hub for students, retirees, and young families. But with growth has come gentrification, and with gentrification, rising rents and dwindling affordable housing. Many long-time residents are being priced out of their own communities, while students and casual workers struggle to keep up with escalating living costs. What's especially concerning in Wollongong is the rise in youth homelessness. The city's proximity to major universities and TAFE campuses brings in thousands of young people every year. But when financial aid runs dry or relationships break down, many are left with nowhere to go. Services are stretched thin, and emergency accommodations are often full or underfunded. Adding to the pressure is a lack of public transport and outreach programs in suburban areas, leaving many to fall through the cracks. People are living in tents in bushland, sleeping rough in cars near the beach, or crammed into overcrowded sharehouses, hidden in plain sight. Wollongong's crisis may not grab headlines like Sydney's, but for the people experiencing it, the pain is just as real. And as we move further up this list, the stories become even more intense. Number 7. Adelaide. Adelaide has long been marketed as one of Australia's most affordable capital cities, a place where families could settle without the overwhelming costs of Sydney or Melbourne. But in 2025, that promise is beginning to fade, as Adelaide finds itself at number 7 on our list for cities hardest hit by the homelessness crisis. What makes Adelaide's situation particularly troubling is that it's happening in a city where people once felt safe from housing pressure. However, with interstate migration increasing and rental vacancies shrinking to record lows, even modest homes are now financially out of reach for many. The result? An alarming rise in people living in cars, couch surfing, or cycling in and out of temporary shelters. Adelaide is also seeing a spike in homelessness linked to mental health and addiction. While these issues are not unique to the city, what sets Adelaide apart is the lack of sufficient support services. Mental health clinics, rehabilitation centres, and crisis housing facilities are overwhelmed, underfunded, and spread thin across the metro area. Many individuals in need of urgent care end up on the streets simply because there's nowhere else to go. The city's aging population and growing number of people on fixed incomes are also at high risk. For older Australians, a single rent hike or medical bill can trigger a devastating downward spiral. Adelaide's rising homelessness rate is a wake-up call that even cities known for stability can become part of the crisis. And believe it or not, the challenges in our next city go even deeper. Number 6. Canberra. When people think of Canberra, they picture wide boulevards, modern infrastructure, and one of the highest average incomes in Australia. As the nation's capital, it's often seen as a place of stability, opportunity, and order. But in 2025, Canberra finds itself at number 6 on our list, a city battling a homelessness crisis that hides in plain sight. Despite its wealth and status, Canberra is experiencing a steep rise in housing insecurity. The cost of living here has surged, driven by booming demand, limited rental stock, and inflated property prices. Public servants, students, and low-income workers are all feeling the squeeze. Even full-time professionals are struggling to find affordable places to live, as rent increases outpace wage growth. What's even more concerning is the number of women and children fleeing domestic violence who are unable to find safe accommodation. Canberra has one of the longest wait lists for public housing in the country, and emergency shelters are constantly at capacity. These families are left in limbo, stuck in unsafe environments, or forced into homelessness. Canberra's polished image often overshadows the people sleeping in cars, crashing with friends, or relying on makeshift shelters in parks. And because of the city's affluence, many assume help is always available. But the reality is far different. Services are stretched, resources are limited, and many fall through the cracks. Canberra's homelessness crisis proves that no city is immune, no matter how wealthy or organised it may seem. And if you think that's shocking, wait until we reveal what's happening in the Gold Coast. Number 5. Gold Coast. Famous for its golden beaches, nightlife, and luxury living, the Gold Coast often feels like Australia's playground. But beneath the high-rises and holiday vibe, a troubling reality is unfolding. One that's landed this city at number 5 on our list. In 2025, the Gold Coast is facing a deepening homelessness crisis, and it's hitting the most unexpected people the hardest. The local economy thrives on tourism, casual hospitality work, and seasonal jobs, industries that were already unstable, and now even more so post-pandemic. For many workers, a missed paycheck or a lost shift means choosing between rent and food. Add in soaring rents and short-term holiday rentals squeezing the housing supply, and the result is a growing number of people with nowhere to go. One of the most heartbreaking aspects is the rise in youth and family homelessness. Entire families are living out of cars, and young people are left couch surfing or sleeping rough. Crisis centres are overwhelmed, and the waiting time for long-term support can stretch for months. The Gold Coast's image of luxury and relaxation stands in stark contrast to the real struggles happening every day on its streets. The city's glittering skyline may draw millions of visitors, but for many locals, it casts a long shadow. Behind the glamour is a silent emergency, and unless real change comes, the Gold Coast may soon find itself even higher on this list. We put our hearts into these videos to bring you the truth that often goes unseen. If this opened your eyes, drop us a comment. What's happening in your city? And don't forget, one click to subscribe means the world to us and helps keep stories like these alive. Number 4. Brisbane. Brisbane has always been a city on the rise. Sunny weather, urban development, and a booming population have made it one of Australia's fastest growing capitals. But in 2025, that rapid growth has come with a dark side. Brisbane now holds the number 4 spot on our list due to a worsening homelessness crisis that continues to spread across the city. The problem? As the city expands, so do housing prices. Gentrification has swept through once affordable suburbs, pushing out lower-income families and long-time residents. At the same time, the availability of public housing hasn't kept pace. Vacancy rates are at historic lows, and competition for rentals is fierce. Even full-time workers are struggling to secure a roof over their heads. Brisbane's crisis isn't limited to rough sleeping. Many are caught in the cycle of temporary shelters, couch surfing, and motels, with no stable place to call home. Single mothers, pensioners, and the working poor are especially vulnerable. Even worse, the support services that do exist are overwhelmed, understaffed, and underfunded. Mental health and drug dependency, often tied to the trauma of homelessness, are increasing rapidly in outer suburbs like Logan and Ipswich. And while the city's skyline keeps rising, so does the number of people sleeping underneath it, exposed to the elements and invisible to most. Brisbane's housing crisis is a clear sign of what happens when development outpaces compassion. And as we move into the top 3, the stories grow even more heartbreaking and more urgent. Number 3. Perth. Perth, once hailed as Australia's mining capital and a land of opportunity, is now facing a crisis it never saw coming. In 2025, it takes the number 3 spot on our list, not because of a sudden collapse, but due to years of uneven growth, economic volatility, and neglected social support systems that have left thousands without a place to call home. Perth's economy is deeply tied to the mining industry, and when the boom was in full swing, people from all over Australia flocked to the city chasing high-paying jobs. But when the mining slowdown hit, many were left stranded, jobless, without savings, and unable to afford soaring rent prices. What followed was a dramatic rise in homelessness, particularly among single men and transient workers. The city also faces a critical lack of affordable housing. New developments cater to the wealthy, while low-income housing projects lag behind. In outer suburbs and industrial zones, makeshift shelters and car parks have become home to hundreds of displaced residents. Aboriginal communities, young people, and veterans are among the most impacted. What's even more troubling is the lack of visibility and awareness. Perth's homeless population is often spread out, hidden in parks, bushland, or industrial areas, out of sight and largely ignored by mainstream policy. Perth's story is a stark reminder. When a city prioritizes profit over people, the cost isn't just economic, it's deeply human. And as we reach the final two cities, the scale of the crisis becomes almost unimaginable. Number 2. Melbourne. Melbourne, often celebrated as Australia's cultural and creative heart, has long been admired for its laneways, festivals, and vibrant lifestyle. But beneath the buzz of cafes and art shows, the city is now facing a harsh and heartbreaking truth. In 2025, Melbourne ranks as the second worst city in Australia for homelessness, with the crisis now more visible and more urgent than ever before. The city's housing market has become one of the most unaffordable in the country. For low-income earners, students, and even middle-class families, finding an affordable rental in Melbourne is increasingly out of reach. Vacancy rates are low, competition is fierce, and public housing waitlists can stretch for more than a decade. It's no longer uncommon to see people sleeping rough in the CBD, under bridges, and in train stations. What's worse is the lasting impact of the pandemic years, which hit Melbourne especially hard. Lockdowns, job losses, and business closures created a ripple effect that left thousands vulnerable to eviction and displacement. Many who never imagined they'd face homelessness are now experiencing it firsthand. The crisis extends beyond just the visible rough sleepers. There's a growing population of hidden homeless. People couch surfing, living in overcrowded spaces, or stuck in short-term motels with no way out. Support services are overwhelmed, and outreach workers report record-breaking demand with shrinking resources. Melbourne's identity as a progressive, livable city is now being tested by a social emergency that demands action. And if this shocked you, wait until you see what's happening in Sydney. Number 1. Sydney. It's Australia's most iconic city, home to the Opera House, Harbour Bridge, and stunning coastlines. But behind Sydney's world-famous skyline lies a crisis of epic proportions. In 2025, Sydney ranks as the number 1 city in Australia most affected by homelessness, and the scale of the problem is nothing short of staggering. Sydney's property market is one of the most expensive in the world. With median rents soaring beyond what most average Australians can afford, the divide between the rich and poor has never been wider. Families are being pushed out of the suburbs they've lived in for generations. Single parents, young professionals, even dual-income households are struggling to keep up. The result? A growing army of people living in cars, parks, train stations, and emergency shelters, if they can even find a bed. One of the most visible indicators is the rise of rough sleeping in the CBD, where once hidden homelessness is now in plain sight. Entire blocks in central Sydney are home to makeshift camps, and community services report an overwhelming demand they simply cannot meet. Many are turned away nightly because there just isn't enough space. Sydney's homelessness crisis is a complex web of unaffordable housing, under-resourced support systems, and policy gaps. It's not just a housing problem, it's a societal failure affecting tens of thousands. And while Sydney shines on the global stage, its darkest corners reveal a human emergency growing by the day. This isn't just a list, it's a call to awareness, and more importantly, to action.